By the way, I'm just curious about it. Have you finished your thesis writing? I mean, I saw lots of graduate. No? Not yet start or?
Still thinking about the hypothesis.
So, yeah, probably I'm giving you some suggestion. Like try to set up lots of deadline, followed by one. So for example, like I will ask Candy to submit the chapter 1 at the end of November. Suppose of 5.
Chapter 1, 2, 3.
And December we will submit chapter 2 and 3. And then January we will start working on the 3 and 4, one by one. So then you will finish your thesis on time. But sometimes I suggest you can set up some deadline for yourself. Maybe not. Your advisor may give you like a more tight deadline, but better to push yourself. So if you are a second year student, make sure you can graduate on time. That's my suggestion. Okay. So Andy, we don't need a meeting today. Just kidding. Yeah, try to well prepare. Alright, so today we will start from talk about custom operation. And this news just occurred this year around June 16. They have lots of fruit destroyed by the China government. So my issue is this will be very common in the custom operation. And I will give you some other video. It's not related to this, but it's very similar. Like when we have the custom operation, we all usually occur on the port or airport. So next year we will be seeing some port, heavy port. They will have this issue. But similarly, even for the airport, we were dealing with lots of passengers, staff. So fruit is one kind of regulation, and most of them violation items. This video shows you how they dealing with
about 43,000 international travelers fly into New York's John F. Kennedy Airport every day. By passenger volume, it's the U.S.'s largest international airport of entry. And in just Terminal 4 alone, that equates to almost 1,000 bags an hour. And in those suitcases, there's a lot of stuff, some of which isn't allowed into the country, including 120 pounds of food per day. So what happens to all those confiscated items anyway?
So very similar to we previously talked about the Double 11, we have lots of the return package, but this time we talk about another garbage, or violation item. So we have to, you may quickly understand this kind of illegal items are found and destroyed by the airport.
If you flew into JFK in the 90s, getting something into the US was a lot easier. But after 9/11, a conversation started about how to protect the country from dangerous foods, drugs, and people. And US Customs and Border Protection, as it's known today, was formed. You'll generally see two kinds of CBP officials at airports: officers like Steve and agriculture specialists like Ginger. Their job is to find, seize, and destroy millions of items each year that don't belong in the United States. It's a big job, and sometimes it requires a sidekick. A sidekick on 4 legs.
This is K9 Spike. Look, Spike. He is an 8-year-old Belgian Malinois, but it is only him from day one, trained in narcotics. During the duration of our career, probably seized over 400 different seizures.
CBP officials like Steve identified high-risk individuals trying to enter into the U.S., as well as drugs and firearms. And because these are such high stakes, dogs like Spike are trained in a special way, in what's called passive response, meaning if they sniff out drugs, they don't scratch, they don't bark, and they don't make a scene. They sit. And if they're right, the dog gets rewarded.
His reward is actually this toy right here. So he likes to play. So, and you're right. You like to play. You like to play. Yes, you do. Yes.
So next time if you go, after COVID, maybe you will start to travel. When you go to the airport, you found some dog nearby your luggage, maybe perhaps kick him out.
Let me see it. Let me see it. Here at the port, we caught up to 16 keys of ecstasy recently.
Narcotics are then seized and sent to be incinerated. The incinerator's location is kept a secret as a matter of national security. Now, pretty much everyone knows that narcotics aren't allowed through U.S. borders. But actually, drugs aren't the most commonly seized item at JFK. Food is. When a regular traveler arrives in the US, they're required to declare any food items they're bringing in, or face up to a $1,000 fine for the first offense. These items aren't taken because agents want to eat your yummy Spanish ham or Caribbean mangoes. It's because agents are responsible for protecting American agriculture from any foreign pests or diseases that could affect our livestock or crops. And that's where agricultural specialists like Ginger come in.
Everything gets destroyed to protect against that pest risk. We are protecting the country's agricultural interests. We're protecting against bioterrorism, where someone could intentionally try to bring in items to wreak havoc in this country.
Foreign bugs hitchhiking in luggage have wreaked havoc in the US before. Florida's orange and grapefruit growers lost $2.9 billion from 2007 to 2014, thanks to the Asian citrus psyllid. And since being introduced into the US in the 90s, the Asian longhorn beetle has ravaged hardwood trees. Eradication efforts between 1997 and 2010 cost more than $373 million.
In our country, we go into the grocery store and the food is always there. We don't have to look at it for holes and check if it's got some disease on it. It always looks great. So we get kind of spoiled, and we don't really understand the importance of protecting that.
So it's crucial that even a single stowaway orange is found and confiscated. But with 34 million annual international passengers to and from JFK, going through each of those bags can seem pretty impossible. For humans, that is. Luckily, they've got a little help from the Beagle Brigade. This four-legged officer is Biscuit, and like Spike, Biscuit is trained in passive response. But Biscuit's trained to sniff out food, rather than drugs.
They actually learned. They start out with 5 target holders, and
So just want to let you know how this, we have a 7 minutes. I just let you go back home to check that. Interesting, and perhaps you will know what's going on around we call it custom operations. But today we not just talk about airport. Airport mainly dealing with the passenger. So passenger may have lots of luggage. How about the freight? Is that easier or difficult than the passenger transportation? Which one is easier to inspect? I mean, for the airport mainly dealing with the passenger and the cargoes. Port mainly dealing with the freight, cargoes more. Which one is easier? How will you think? Which one is easy to inspect for example here, inspect smuggling thing or illegal items? Or how will you think? Airport or port? Passenger or freight? Which one is easy to check? Passenger? Freight? You want to guess? Passenger side is easier. You see lots of passenger flights. Well, so far it's kind of a special case. So far I think passenger is much easier than because we don't have so many flights to take a passenger right now. But freight is in general is much more difficult than the passengers. Think about every vessel I forgot I mentioned maybe on the Thursday courses. Every vessel will carry around 8,000 to 10,000 containers each time. So which means you have lots of containers arrive simultaneously. You have to you may not be able to check one by one. So in general, we just sampling, random sampling 15 to 25% of the containers, open lot, check one by one. Well, it's very time consuming and almost impossible. Even we have lots of dogs to help. But one container is around nearly one classroom, and they can carry lots of the items. So idea is very difficult to check. So this news just occur almost. And maybe next Friday we can ask the agency in Taipei to see how seriously and how they check these issues, how they solve this problem. And very difficult to solve that. Okay. Before we talk more about the custom operations, I will give you other issues later. But before that, let me quickly sum up something. This news I think most of you have already known, so I may not be able to, I don't have time to share this one, but it's also very important for the global supply chain. And this is previously Huawei, the market share rate. I always like to give you some data, and here market share rate, you will see like nearly even more than the Apple before, because iPhone is kind of luxury goods so far. And not just for the smartphone, they also take the lots of like even for 5G equipment, so they have also very high market share rate. But today I would like to spend a little bit time to talk about these issues. We don't have time to make another discussion, but just want to let you know what happened around the world. Anyone know this country, Qatar? Yeah, okay. And I think most of you know the OPEC. And OPEC tried to, anyone want to tell me what OPEC do? What kind of OPEC operations every day? Main purpose, they want to control the oil price. So how they control the oil price? Yeah, always based on demand and supply, so they can lower down the supply to control the price. It's fine, but in recent years, they are challenged by different countries. United States, lots of the countries can produce, even for Taiwan. Yesterday, I don't know how many of you know the news. We found like a new oil storage in Africa, so which means Taiwan can start to produce the oil from Africa every year. So which means like more and more the countries will challenge the OPEC. But eventually Qatar want to leave the whole OPEC. I want to let you know what happened, and we don't have time to do a discussion, but you can think about like why they eventually decide to leave this organization. Today I would like to spend like a little bit, maybe 20 minutes talk about international organization. Because we talk about custom operations, before the custom operations, you better know, we talk about the international alliance or some like the free trade zone or something. Today I'll talk about two issues. So this is number one issue. Apparently joining the OPEC, they have lots of advantage. I want you to know why they decide to quit. So this is the first news I would like to share here.
Breakups go, this one was abrupt and seemingly out of the blue. Here's how Qatar's energy minister delivered the news that his country's 57-year membership of the world's most important group of oil-producing nations was coming to an end.
The state of Qatar has decided to withdraw its membership from the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, effective January 2019. This decision was communicated to OPEC this morning.
OPEC is made up of 15 countries. It was founded in 1960 with the goal of helping members benefit from a steady rise in oil prices. So just how big a role does it play globally? At present, OPEC nations hold almost 82% of the world's reserves.
Certainly, this is a statistic from last year. So maybe this year they will a little bit change, but still you can see like OPEC still dominate the whole situation. So which means you want to leave this orange bar, orange circle to this blue area. It's very high risk. You know, we always talk about like leave the comfort zone. Kind of like.
Qatar by itself controls 1.7% of the stockpile. It might not sound significant, but for a country of just 2.7 million, it punches above its weight. The decision to withdraw from OPEC will enable the country to increase production outside of the cartel's constraints. But it's also being read as a slight to the group's leading, to withdraw from OPEC will enable the country to increase production outside of the cartel.
Okay, anyone know this cartel's constraint? Okay, you can Google that later. You know, it's a little bit restriction, regulation, fight with OPEC. But you can check that.
Of constraints. But it's also being read as a slight to the group's leading member, Saudi Arabia, which last year instigated a boycott of Qatar, accusing it of supporting terrorists. Qatar's energy minister denies there's a political motive.
It has nothing to do with the blockade. Okay, the timing is, if you look at the status of the OPEC, if any country wants to withdraw, what it has to do is basically put in writing its request or its decision to withdraw, and it basically withdraws in the next calendar year.
Qatar's decision to leave OPEC may not cause major damage to the group. but it certainly calls into question its reputation for putting shared economic interests above politics.
And for more on Qatar's move to pull out of OPEC, I'm joined by Spencer Welk, Director of Oil Markets and Downstream Energy at IHS Markit in London. Good to have you with us. Of course, Qatar is not a major oil producer, we just heard that in our report, but does its exit from OPEC have any impact on the cartel itself?
It's inevitable that it will have some impact, although I think that impact is relatively small. Qatar produces around 600,000 barrels per day of oil. OPEC produces around 30 to 40 million barrels per day. So in terms of production, Qatar is a small part of OPEC. So a small impact, but not a significant impact.
But in terms of reputation, image, or unity?
Again, maybe a little bit, but a couple of years ago, Indonesia decided to withdraw and then decided to come back in again. I think it's logical what Qatar is doing. Their priorities on gas. That's not something new. That it has been like that for a few years. So oil production is not their main area.
Try to check this. Qatar right now become the world's biggest LNG swing-on gas exporter. So they will not actually stay with the OPEC because they have other business.
For a focus, and so I guess they're saying they don't need to be part of OPEC. They want to just carry on producing what they can, but focusing on developing more gas.
You've mentioned gas, I mean liquid and natural gas, of course, that is where Qatar is already the world leader when it comes to exports. How much of a potential is there?
Well, so gas is a growing market. The world's demand for gas is going up. The world's demand for oil is going up as well, but gas demand is rising faster. Gas is seen as a cleaner fuel, and therefore the medium-term future of gas looks better, more optimistic than oil. It's almost inevitable that the world's demand for oil will peak. The question is when is that going to be? Certainly, if there's going to be a peak in gas.
Okay, so question here, like they talk about gas, and they say like gas is kind of relatively cleaner energy than oil. Yesterday we have some students share the wind, and right now most of the countries around the world try to talk about a renewable energy, not oil or something. So Qatar like to move another way, and I mean today we don't have time to discussion, but we just want to let you know what happened around the world. Perhaps you go back home, you can study more, you can see what's going on, starting from last year, because this decision made on January 2019. And after 1 year, what happened so far? And this will be one kind of, like, I don't know, final 10 project topic. So some of you students try to ask me, like, what kind of topic we have to prepare during the final 10 project? I just give you an example. So this is what happened last year. Perhaps you can give me like more like the latest and your following, I don't know, message or information. Try to analyze this event and standing from the viewpoints from Qatar, or standing from the viewpoints from the OPEC, and you can think about how this real impact. So if we just look at the market share rate, 1.6% of oil may not really hurt for the OPEC. You know, it's kind of very small. But for the OPEC's viewpoint, how do you think? If just like Qatar withdraw, it's not, how will you do? We just quickly think about it. If you are the manager for the OPEC, you are the leader for the different countries, they say 15 countries, so now one just want to quit. I give you a similar scenario. Think about the United Kingdom. They want to leave the European organization. Eva, how do you think? I asked a similar question. Last year we have 3 professors from London, and I tried to ask them. One professor even told me like they don't know what happened. The government just decided to quit. So which means certain like the British people even don't know this decision behind it, what kind of real price based on this decision. And some professors just told me that they're thinking, but perhaps we'll start from this. So Eva, how do you think? How UK leave the euro, is that really affect your home country or not?
Most of the people who work in Great Britain, there are a lot of Europeans working in Great Britain, so they are a bit worried what's going to happen. They need a special working permit now or visa. I remember those times when there was no European Union yet, or we had to wait a lot for special visa, even like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
To with a standing in line and wait in front of the British embassy to get the visa just to visit the country. So it was very complicated, and I believe many people were worried what's going to happen, and they are still worried.
Still worried, yeah. Because like this kind of still, I'm not saying haven't finished yet, right? They are still thinking about whether to leave or stay. And they have lots of debate inside the United Kingdom. We don't have time to discuss this big issue, but just want to let you know. Today I would like to talk about international organization. For organization's viewpoint, no matter how these members, how small would like or how weak would like, in general, they want to keep a big group. So during that 2 years ago, like the United Kingdom, they start to talk about like whether to leave or stay. It's bring lots of like impact and challenging. Even so far, I remember they haven't reached the final decision, right? They want to leave, but haven't made the real time and date or set up something.
Yeah, it's going on. It's been going on for how long? For 2 years already.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So far, as far as I know, like they haven't reached the exact date when they will leave or what kind of thing. You know, it's very complicated. But think about Qatar's case. Although they only take 1.6%, but even though they want to leave, OPEC may not really willing to let them go. And the other thing is Qatar, not just, although you see like a 1.6%, I don't show the percentage for LNG, the gas, but so far you know they are ranking number 1 around the world, which means they spend their effort to develop this kind of gas. And keep this ranking number 1 LNG. Well, gas is kind of byproduct for the oil, if you know more. So which means like maybe OPEC want to keep this. And so this is the first news I would like to share today about the international organization. And I have lots of the attention following news. If you want to make some reading, you can feel free to join that. Second issue is this. You see like lots of, I would like to highlight something, RCEP and the TPP. You know, last couple of weeks ago, we talked about new NAFTA, right? And you know the Euro, the EU is here. We even have the Asia before. We have 10 countries, another like alliance. But now there are 2 new ones. One led by mainland China, one led by United States. So you see like the TPP is kind of led by the United States. Take lots of countries join in, that's 38% of the transaction among the global supply chain operations. RCEP take around nearly 30%, a little less. They start from China. And the interesting thing is, even though you don't know the Chinese words, I just want to let you know, Japan, they join both sides. So how do you think? Is that easy to judge? You know, most of the countries, they may not lucky like Japan can have a chance to join both sides. If you can only choose one side, which one would you like to choose? Can you stand on your home country, think about this issue? It's very interesting. You know, we talk about the United States and the mainland China, they have a trade war so far. Perhaps, I don't know when the new resident will be determined. But so far, the trade war still keep fighting. And starting from the 2014, you know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, those 2 countries have 2 new organizations, international organizations. So TPE led by the United States, RCEP led by mainland China. They have their own specific like the settings. How do you think, if you go back to think about your home country, how you suggest your country to choose which side? So for example, even in Taiwan right now, we have 2 different opinions. How do you think? Anyone want to share your opinions? Which side you suggest? For example, you can suggest Taiwan or suggest, I don't know, Mongolia, Indonesia, Thailand. Which one you want to join? And you want to share anything very short? You know, like lots of international organization, and joining is very difficult. Withdraw will be another issue. So you may not be able to like quota join and withdraw very easily. How will you think? Which side do you want to join? The RCEP or GPP?
What's the benefits?
The benefit is within this, perhaps you have the lower custom tariff. You can have the not say free, and they still just lower down, and you can have the fewer restriction to do the transaction. So better to join like the some countries can only, most of the countries can only choose one, and Taiwan want to choose either, but Taiwan has very limited chance to join one of them. Japan is very lucky. So far I found like only Japan. Only Japan, New Zealand. Oh, New Zealand also, right? Oh, okay. Two of them join both sides. So you can see that some countries maybe they are very important, so they can easily to join both sides, which means they have a more national interest. How will you think? Staying in your home country, which side you suggest to join? Okay, Thailand chose China. Why?
Because in the viewpoint of Thailand, because I think we in Thailand we depends on the China more than in the US. As from the statistic, as I heard that from the last year before the COVID-19, we have the Chinese tourists around 10 million visit Thailand per year, comparing to the European or the USA, and also the trade alliance between the Thailand and China has more amount than in the USA as well. So I think if we can join with the China side, we will have more benefit than to join in the TPP.
Okay, I'm not so sure so far. I haven't made the update. Maybe next week. Next 2 weeks I can give you the update list to see how eventually Thailand choose which side. How about the Vietnam or Indonesia? Cynthia, how's your thinking? I'm gonna ask Henry later. How do you think? Which side you think is better, good choice for your home country?
I don't know. Actually, I think Indonesia like in the middle of both of that country. Like they, for Indonesia, they didn't really go through.
I think most of.
Or the China.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting strategy. You can become the middle.
Yeah, in the middle.
But middle means like you want like Japan or New Zealand to join both, or join nothing. Definitely, you know, like every country wants to join both, but it's not that easy. Depends on what kind of power your country owns.
You're not that powerful.
Anyway, just let you think. How about Vietnam? Any suggestion? Maybe from Korea later. I mean, or different. We don't have an army today, but I just want to let you think. Like it's very difficult. We talk about international organization. We're supposed to join every organization, but sometimes it's very difficult. You may not be able to join everyone, and the worst case is you join nothing. So like Taiwan right now, we want to join, but very difficult. So it's why we call it worst case, which means they have some tariff reduction, but we have to challenge with those kind of unfair competitiveness situation. So just want to let you see. I also have some video, but no time to share today. And this news just let you know what happened, but I mentioned this before, like more and more like the maritime company want to merge together. So this just shows like 3 Japanese maritime company finally joined to this we call one, just because like they can increase their market share rate, they can increase their economic scale, so they finally decide to merge. And if you are highly interested, I also attach a news for you. Okay, let me finish my slides first. So in general, I think most of you don't know the custom regulation. We have seen the video for the airport, very similar for the port operations. And lots of things during the cross-border, we try to check lots of things. And why we need to set up the custom operations? Mainly based on these reasons, safety or security. tariff or what we call tax. Competition, because you join a different alliance, you can share the different interests, trade regulation, even national interests. So lots of reasons, so different countries, they set up different customs operations here. What kind of customs operations we try to control? We list it here. Very similar, but a little bit different. So Eva mentioned the visa. Sometimes we have the quotas, we have a limited rate, so like even entry restriction, lots of things. So this is the standing from different viewpoints. We have lots of stakeholders who are involved in these customs operations. Shipper, we talk about shipper, and forwarder, or like the importer, exporters, lots of the different regulations. CHB, you just see the video. So CHB is trying to control the borders, and CON is another like the temporary customs operations document. What kind of key factors of the tariff or like duties? I try to list several layers. Not just for these three, I have 7 at the end, but in here we need to know classification, origin, and the value. That's the 3 main ideas we need to know for the cargoes. And we have different values. I try to give you a name, but in general they have a different value to determine which value. Why we need to know the value? Because you want to charge the tax. If you don't know the value, you may not be able to charge you that. So they have a different method to count this kind of value. We call it 5. And for maintain a custom operation, they have lots of bonds here. I just want to let you know. Here I just mentioned they have lots of bonds. I listed here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I have a definition here. They have different terminology. But I would like to liquidate, but you can go back and check. They are very similar. They have a different stage. I would like to mention something. Liquidation means a bankruptcy and then try to finish their goods. Let me show you first. I would like to talk about these 2. AD, first one. It's very important. 3 terms I would like to talk about the customs operations. Anti-dumping. Anti-dumping means like some foreign manufacturers sell goods in a very cheap price. Anyone want to give me some example? I can give you some example. Steel. Steel is kind of like the challenging issue. Mexico and Taiwan, we have already been sued by the United States because they think like the price is too cheap. Why? The labor cost is relatively lower in these 2 countries, and the manufacturing cost is also cheap. So anti-dumping will try to fight with these kind of countries and make sure they can have enough like the reasonable price in the United States. Another one very similar, we call it CVD. What's the meaning of CVD? CVD means like a country provides some assistance or subsidy to make sure their